We'll do that too. Everybody got your paper out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does it show that we are is it showing that we're recording yet? Yep, we're on. Perfect. So let me get us to this thing that I want here. There we go. Everybody ready? So I was kind of assessing my business since I'm in production too. So I'm like, I need to check myself. And I'm like, well, why don't I just go ahead and use this as a learning experience for anybody else that wants to join in? So good morning, everybody. Here we are. So 3 new leads in 3 weeks. And the good news is you'll find it's a little misleading in a positive way. So the objectives over the next maybe couple hours or so is we're going to assess your closed production year to date against your annual goals. And then we'll create a customized plan of action for the remaining 3 weeks of May. So it's Friday, I know it's, the weekend, it's Mother's Day, there's stuff going on, but hopefully you'll take notes today and the things that you learn, you'll create a written plan for the next 3 weeks of May to maybe get you back on track. So that's what we're here for. So it's May 10th. Some of you know this. So what does that mean? What's the date in the real estate world? Y'all are all muted, so you're going to act like you don't know. So remember, go ahead, Brent.
Today in the real estate world, it's almost through the half of the second quarter.
Yeah. Remember, anything we do today is going to show up about 90 days from now. We plant seeds. So if you're not going to close today on something you don't have in progress. So what you do today will show up 90 days from now. Kind of earth-shattering. So that's what we mean. So if you were to get a new lead today from any prospecting that you do, chances are it'll take 90 days, particularly if it's a buyer, right? You got to go get some, ideally you'll meet with them in a buyer consultation, so you got to schedule that. You're probably not going to meet with them over the weekend. You schedule it sometime next week when all parties can be there. Then you get them in front of a lender, so then that's going to take a few days. What are they pre-qualified for? Then you figure out what their, I usually set them up in MLS on an automatic email. They start looking, and then suddenly, hey, we like 3 that you sent us, and then you set the appointment. And then a few weeks from there, you go and write an offer, and it's a competing offer situation, so you lose. So you go back and show houses again, boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, it's September, and you're probably closing these people for May. That's real estate. So back to your production, and you're all welcome, since there's a handful of us, you're welcome to participate or just take notes privately. With your closed production year to date, so, from January 1st through May 10th, or May 9th, because we're here today, your closed production plus pending, so what you truly have on contract scheduled to go to a closing, you should actually be more than halfway through your 2019 goals because of what we just said. So that was a wake-up call for me as I was working on this webinar for us. Wow. I'm a little behind on my personal production goals. How about you guys?
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I am. I have to own it. So are you where you want to be financially? And if not, how does that make you feel?
Bad.
I'm a little stress monkey. So hopefully what we're going to do today will get our mindset reset. I got a little notice going on here. What? There's some stuff going on in chat. I'll have to handle that, guys, after, if that's okay. So,
Hey, Christine.
You are, yeah.
Just real quick, somebody has a very sensitive microphone, and
okay.
It's causing a little bit of challenge with hearing your presentation.
Okay. If you guys could please mute unless you're speaking up, I would appreciate that. Because sometimes a little scuffle messes up mine. I'm technology challenged. So we're talking through my phone, looking at my computer. So you're CEO of a small business, and nobody tells you that when you get your real estate license. You get your real estate license, every brokerage you go and interview with wants you to come on board because they're collecting bodies like little spaghetti strings on the wall, and nobody tells you what to do. You might get training on listings, buyer consultations, hopefully contracts. And So it's the skills. It's not the overview of running a business. So a lot of us didn't come from that background. So did you create a written business plan for 2019? So if not, take note. That's something that it's not too late to do it. You can do one from here through the end of the year. So if you didn't, was it simply because what we just talked about, no one was asking you what your goals are or guiding you to resources and activities to help you achieve them? So we'll talk about how to resolve that at the end of the presentation. Are you getting pressure at home from a spouse or a family member? That's happened a lot. I've heard the stories as a coach. You know, my husband's mad at me. I quit my job. We're living off of his income. We have blown through the 401k. He wants me to start staying home because we can't afford childcare now. So do you have that going on in the background, or are you just personally feeling the strain, or both? Because if you're not meeting your financial goals, it creates pressure for all of us. Agreed? So let's change that around, right? It does. So why is it that the majority of agents fail within the first 2 years? And it's that typical, the 80-20 rule. 80% of newly licensed agents across the nation, this is NAR statistics, get out of the business within the first 2 years. And yet, some consistently make great income year after year. And as we know, some of them even expand their business. They create teams. They branch out into other geographical areas. So where's the difference? We'll talk about some of that too. So, well, I've been there. So I started my first year in 1999. I left my salaried job as a property manager for apartments. So I had all the benefits, you know, health insurance, paid time off, vacation time, steady income, and bonuses. And I quit to get into the real estate business. And I had a mortgage payment already as a single female. I had a car payment. I had overhead that had to get paid. I think if I had a savings account, I might have had $1,000 in there. Who knows? It was irrelevant. So I told my father, I'm diving in. He goes, oh my God, what are you going to do? He said, what if you don't make it? I said, well, I give it 30 days. I said, so, and then after that, I'll go back and wait tables just to get the bills paid until I get a job again. So that first year, I did join a team and made 20% of the buyer side commission. We weren't allowed to take listings, and worked my booty off. I cried every Sunday from sheer exhaustion, and I ended up making $27,000 that year, which was absolutely less than I made in my salary job. Ended up having to borrow money from a friend to keep the bills paid, which I ultimately took me 8 months to pay him back. And it was brutal. It was brutal. So I knew I had to change things, but that's not the life that I had wanted. I thought being a real estate agent was, all those people driving around the Cadillacs, right? And back then they all had their little yellow jackets on. So I had to change. So 20 years later, I'm still here in real estate, what we call a veteran or old person or established or whatever you want to call it. And I realized that it's my passion and purpose to help others who truly want to make this a career, not their little side gig, and create a bigger life than what you currently have. So I'm here to help you, here to share some of the info that I have today. So my personal motivation as far as my financial number, and yes, I do a business plan, and there is a specific number that I try to hit to pay the bills. However, my bigger motivation, what we call the big why, is that I never want to have to say no to an invitation or an experience because I can't afford it. I don't want that to be the reason. If I turn down something, it's because I just don't want to do it, not because I can't afford it. So why do you want to succeed in real estate? And that's all personal. You're welcome to share or just take notes. So to get us all back on the right path, today I'm hoping to provide you some insight into how I went from the $27,000 to literally 140 gross commissions by my fourth year. And it increased exponentially year after year. So the good news is today I'm not selling you a lead system like all those other, Facebook sponsored ads we see. Bad news is there's no magic. But the great news is if you truly take notes and commit to what you're learning today, it will create results. So we're just going to focus, we're not going to focus on that annual plan. We're just going to focus on what I promised you. We're going to create a plan for the next 3 weeks. Are you ready? Here's the meat of it. Okay. So take notes to yourself. What are your monthly financial needs? So this includes things such as all of your personal bills. And remember to, ladies, our hair, right? I don't even want to talk about what this costs. So just take the black out, right? So that is a monthly standing bill for me. So all that, and my nails are currently not done, but anything that is a standing monthly bill in your household, if your kid has a tutor, if you have to pay monthly for the dance lessons, whatever it is, quickly assess all of that you are responsible for in your household. Then take a look at your business expenses, your MLS dues, if you're doing any marketing, if you need to budget, for your postcards, if you're doing any just all that jazz, think about that quickly. And sometimes it's an annual number, so divide it by 12, and obviously we've got 8 months left. And then you add 30% on top for taxes, because we don't know what tax bracket you're in, so let's just cushion it and make it 30. So that's the nuts that you have to cover every month. On top of that, think about, why are you in real estate? It's not just to live, right? It's to have a bigger life. So what are the things that you want to do this year that you're needing that extra money for, such as the family cruise, maybe summer camp for the kids, and gosh knows I hear that's expensive. I had some customers last night, some buyers, they were supposed to get pre-qualified over Easter. They've been dragging their feet a little bit. I checked in yesterday. I'm like, hey, we're ready. I know your lease is running out. They said, oh, the transmission just went out in the car, so we have to postpone buying the house. So you got to budget for the unexpected things as well. Oh, I said 8 months. So what, we got 7 left? We got 8 months, right? No, well, 7, because what we're doing is the plan June forward, so 7 months. So take all those expenses together, and then divide by 7, so that you're going to want to know what your monthly target is. Everybody with me so far? We're going to do some down and dirty math, and I'm going to lose some of you, so take notes. Like I said, the good news is I will send you the recording later and the PowerPoint. But you're going to have your thinking cap on for the next few slides. So as you're working on your personal numbers at home, one more thing to think about is, how would your life be different if you earned more than just covering, because that's just surviving, that's not living. And then you are able to take that family cruise. And then what if you're able to put money aside for future stuff? Maybe it's to invest back in your business to expand your business. Maybe it's to create another resource of income. So what is the one thing that you've always wanted to do, but you couldn't afford to do? You need to think about that and put that in your plan so you can figure out how to budget for that. Start budgeting over the next 7 months. Oh, you guys are quiet. So your close production year-to-date, January through April. Here's where we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Do you know the source of each lead? So your closing so far, where have they come from, and what does it cost you? So for example, the best resource we always say is your SOI, your sphere of influence, people that you know. You want your friends and your family and your former coworkers and your spouse's coworkers, sending you business. Most of mine comes from Facebook. Sometimes, or oftentimes, it's just a direct message from a friend or whatever. Hey, I ran into this person. They're looking for a house. Example, yesterday, I'm hosting an open house for another agent tomorrow. So I created the event, posted all over social media. I get a private message through my business page from a friend, just a social friend, who said, hey, this lady named Rita is a friend of Dawn's. So here we are, third party around and around, it might be interested in looking at that house that you're hosting on Saturday. I said, great. I said, give me your contact information. And that's the key too, guys, is we don't wait for them to come to us. I don't know who this woman is. Is she going to show up? I have no idea. So I asked for her contact information. So this guy, Greg, had to go back to the guy, Don, to get the information for the woman, Rita. And they did. So I emailed her yesterday. I said, hey, I understand we have some mutual friends and you might be interested in this townhouse, da-da-da. So we've been emailing back and forth this morning. So your sphere of influence is the cheapest. What did that cost me? 0. So the cheapest source of leads is your sphere. But we know there's tons and tons of other ones as well. So some things, out of area agents. This is my, one of the ways that I market a lot. And if you're with a franchise, it doesn't matter who, there's typically referral networks within your company. And if you are with an independent company, then make it your job, as a suggestion, as one of your ways to network, to reach out to agents outside of your area. And what does that cost? The cost of an out-of-area referral, of course, is going to be somewhere between typically 20 to 25% off the gross commission. So it's a chunk. However, I recently got a lead, and I showed them houses Sunday afternoon on the way back from their coaches retreat. They're looking between $500,000 and $600,000 for a beach house. So I have an agreement that I'm paying the referring agent up in South Carolina that's going to be listing their house 25% when I find them a house. So I'm going to pay her 25% off of a $600,000 house. Big deal. I wouldn't have had it had I not. So you've got to think about where you're getting your business and how much does it cost. So obviously social media can be free. Of course, you can pay for sponsored ads. And while we often train to have you lead with revenue, so don't go buying a bunch of leads. If you want to spend money on a little bit of leads to more target your audience, social media is the best bet going as far as value. Open houses. So maybe you spend money on some snacks and the balloons that day. Financially, that's the only investment you've got in, right? Door knocking, what does that cost? The cost of printing for the flyers if you're bringing something of value like that. There's other things you can do as well that where you don't have to create the flyers. For sale by owners and expires, typically that's phone calls. So are you investing in a dialer? What does that cost you every month? So for example, if your flyer is costing you, your dialer is costing you $200 a month, and let's say you've already paid for the first 5 months, now you've invested $1,000 just to get phone call leads. Have you gotten a listing from those calls? Or have you just blown $1,000 out the door? So you need to track business that's working for you. Paid internet leads. My personal advice on this is don't do it. Plenty of people do. There's a technique. It will work if you do it correctly, but it's very, very expensive. And I just saw a news release from Inman News this morning. Zillow is boasting about their profits for the first quarter of the year, and guess where their money came from? The agents in the Premier Agent Program that are paying them $400, $800, $1,600 a month on leads. They're boasting about how much money they're making off of agents, and they're selling us back our own information that they got from MLS. So is it worth it for you to spend $800 a month to maybe get a buyer? Personal decision. So who knows what a conversion rate is? This gets down and dirty with tracking your numbers. So it's the number of real estate conversations, not just passing out your business card somewhere, that you have to create a lead, which then can become a contract or a listing and then ultimately a closing. And in my opinion, and you'll hear people say different things, in my opinion, the first step is a lead. For instance, that lady Rita that hopefully I'll meet tomorrow, right now she's a lead. She is a name, and I have her contact information of somebody that is looking for real estate. I'm not working with her yet. When I start working with her, she's now a prospect. And then hopefully that prospect commits to you, and then they become a sales contract or listing, which ultimately brings you to the closing table. We're going to talk about just the first step, how to get the leads. Your conversion rate will determine if they become prospects. So there's some averages across the industry. And for your METs, we just mentioned your sphere of influence, people that you truly, truly know and that know you. The average, depending on your conversion rate, is between 12 and 20 real estate conversations. So who are your METs? And it's not just, everybody thinks they only know about 50, and I promise you the world is much bigger than that. I have resources. I have one that's 8 pages long of people that you know that maybe you haven't thought about. But the deal is, you've got to reach 12 to 20 people in your real life and have a real estate conversation with them for somebody to come up with a name of somebody who's probably looking for real estate right now. That's a lot. However, the not METs, that's an even bigger number. So typically it's 50 to 60. So then who are the not METs? Well, basically it's everybody else in the world that you don't know. So that's why we do the prospecting activities to get in front of those people to collect them and maybe convert them to a Met. So rule of thumb, and this is an interesting concept, and Brent and I talked about this last night. To grow your business, the concept is you need to focus 40% of your time on the Mets, which seems a little misleading because remember, working with your Mets is the cheapest way to get business, so it seems counterproductive. And 60% on your not Mets. So let me explain what that's all about. So your Mets, you want to continue to feed them, and then as he and I discussed last night, however, you gotta love on them a little bit. So you're going to want to take them to lunch sometimes. You're going to want to do the Popeyes and bring them little gifts. So there's going to be a financial investment in continuing to love on them, because let's face it, they're going to forget about you if you're not staying in front of them. And then of course, there's the story where, oh, well, their sister just got her real estate license, so they're going to use her now to sell the house that you sold them 6 years ago. So your Mets aren't always going to be in your sphere. They're going to trickle away. So you want to continue to grow your business and get in front of not Mets to convert them into your Mets. So you want to focus 60%, 50 to 60% of your time on the not Mets. You ready with me so far? Silence. So do you have systems in place, such as drip campaigns, to stay top of mind? I've already just talked about Popeyes, having lunch with your past customers. You also have an email system, so they get regular emails from you. So you need to start thinking about how you're touching folks. And then, does anybody already know what your personal conversion rate? If you've got it down pat, maybe for you it's only 8 people. For some people, maybe it's 35. So there are resources to help you get your conversion rate smaller. So you ready for the nitty gritty? Working on our plan for the next 3 weeks? We've all heard that term, time blocking. So that's literally where you set aside time. Like right now, we're all together for maybe 2 hours. We know it's going to be an hour and a half. And this is what we're doing. And we might be checking emails on the side. However, what you're supposed to do during a time blocked period is you set aside this time to devote to the webinar today. You're supposed to be working on the webinar. And then all emails and whatnot are returned later. So you need to be succinct and very clear about where your time's going and not be multitasking throughout the event. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is block out personal time for your personal and family obligations. For example, if you're picking up your kids every day at 3 o'clock, that's a non-negotiable item, right? So you need to put that in your calendar, whether it's a Google Calendar or paper or whatever you use. You've got to block out that hour, hour and a half to sit in the parent line to go pick up the kids. So you got to have that in there. What if your son has soccer practice every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock? From 9 to 11, you got to block that out. So think about family first. And we know this Sunday's Mother's Day, so if you have plans, maybe Sunday's your day off. So that goes on your calendar first. You've got to take care of family first. Next, you want to always grow and expand in your business, so you've got to block out time for training and sales meetings. The only caution on here is I want you to be careful not to become a perpetual student, which paralyzes you from engaging in the activities. So this is going to have to be a balance. So hopefully your company has a monthly calendar of trainings, and you can decide at the beginning of each month what you're going to commit to. Block that on your calendar. And then next, and here's the crucial part, what 3 activities, in addition to those phone calls and touching the people we know that we've already talked about, what other activities are you going to commit to over the next 3 weeks? And for each of you on here, it's going to be something different. So you have to decide what you've already been doing. Is it working? Do you want to try something new? But commit to 3 things that are going to help you get in front of the not Mets. Everybody taking notes? All right, get ready. So here's where your brain's going to explode. So here's a little example. Her name is Agent Amy Amazing. And we're just going to look at her plan to maybe help you trigger and create yours. So here we go. Numbers, folks. The Mets, people that she knows. Here's her plan. So Amy did that little monthly budget that we did a few minutes ago. So she knows she needs $4,000 a month for her monthly bills, her personal bills, her MLS dues, all that stuff. She has got to end up with at least $4,000 a month just to sustain her life. So that's your starting point. So her average sales price is $200,000 so far this year, her average for her closings. And she's on an 80% split with her office. And so my calculation, the 0.028, I use, so that's 2.8% commission, because we're not getting into a commission discussion, but we know commissions vary. Oftentimes they're 2.5 or 2.75 or 3 or whatever they are. So that's just, I use that number just to make it an average. So the gross commission on her sales is $5,600. So she gets to take home $4,480 from each of her closings. So obviously all she needs is one sale based on her average to cover her nut, right? With maybe a little bit left over. However, not all contracts get to the closing table, right? We know they blow up a couple days before sometimes. So you've got a cushion for the fallout. So her goal is to actually have 2 closings a month to cover for the fallout, and then, hey, if they both close, then awesome, perfect. Maybe that's the extra money she needs to fund that cruise or the next best thing. So for her, it takes her 30 contacts, not the 20, so she needs a little work here. So that goes back to, since she's a little higher than average, maybe Amy could benefit from scripting with a partner to work on her skills and objection handling to get her conversion rate down, because that's going to take a lot of time to contact 30 people a day that she knows. But right now her number's 30, room for improvement. So based on that, that's going to take her, if she does 10 calls a day, 5 days a week, then she's going to need to make 150 reach outs, conversations with people that she knows over the next 3 weeks. So based on the averages that we talked about, that should produce her 5 leads. Now remember, we talked about I'm only going to give you 3. So the good news is I've just given you 5. However, we said leads are just names, like that lady Rita that I mentioned this morning. That's a lead. She's not necessarily going to become somebody they end up working with. I don't know if she's talked to another agent yet or not. So you need more leads than you got, because not all of them are going to produce prospects. So far she's got 5 leads just from reaching out to people that she knows. Remember, it didn't cost her anything but time. And so if she's, I'll show you the time invested in a minute on that too. Here we go. So if it takes her 3 hours a day to call those leads, then she's spending 15 hours a week making the phone calls. Now here's her not mets. So she chose to do open houses, door knocking around the open houses, and networking events as her 3 activities. Remember your options, there's tons of other things out there. There's calling for sale by owners, there's calling expired. A lot of us have floor duty at the office. That's like, you know, it's like an open house hit or miss. You might get lucky. I know somebody that got $1 million lead in the Jacksonville Beach office from just being available when somebody called in. Crazy. Anybody else have any other ideas? There's tons of ways to prospect. Yes, Brent?
I like the door knocking around the new listings. You know, anytime we get a listing, go out and door knock around the new listing so that
That's awesome.
you can share the listing and, you know, maybe explain to people that you'll have buyers come by that won't be their right house, and ask the neighbors if they're interested in maybe showing their property.
Absolutely. So you can do that around just the office listings. So it doesn't have to be yours, but somebody else?
I have a question about door knocking. Is
Yes,
it
ma'am.
something that's essential? Because as a woman, that may be kind of dangerous, I think. And I was wondering,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
could we be successful without doing that, or?
Yes, and the good news is in real estate is there's plenty of options, and you get to choose the modes and the activities that you want to do to create your business. Door knocking is an option, and some ways around that is you can always door knock with a partner in your office, and then you guys just share the leads. Like if you get 10 leads that day, then maybe you each get 5 and follow up with 5 each. Or you work them together and you split, you know, the commission at closing. Another thing you can do with door knocking is going around with what we call a vendor partner, like a mortgage lender, because they need to get in front of people too. So, A, you do not have to do door knocking, and B, you can do it with a partner to make yourself, feel more comfortable. I get it. And the other, and just, we'll take this down this path for just a second. The other thing with door knocking is, guys, and I've seen in a bunch of Facebook referral groups lately, people are just, they're not abiding by the rules. We have to be professionals. If it is a no solicitation neighborhood, don't do it. I know that you're giving an invitation to an open house, so you're not selling them something, but let's be honest with ourselves. We're there to sell our services. So just be polite and don't go in those neighborhoods. I personally got tagged in my old neighborhood. I wasn't door knocking around an open house. I went around and said, hey, I'm a resident realtor. I had cute little gift bags with my printed newsletter and some other Shotzi in there. And it was mostly welcome. And then there was that one old creeper, that had nothing better to do than to be the complainer. And he sits on the HOA board. So he sent me cursed at me on my voicemail. And then apparently I was the talk of the next 2 HOA meetings. So I never got any business from that. So pick your plan carefully.
Okay,
I had an agent that, in order to get around door knocking issues, on the 4th of July, the night of the 3rd of July, they went to the neighborhood where there was no solicitation, and they put little tiny American flags with their business cards next to the mailboxes of each house, so that on the 4th of July, everybody woke up and the street was lined with small American flags, and they got some leads off of that, and nobody took offense to it because it wasn't door knocking. They weren't it was soliciting, yet it was an interesting way to do something different. I thought that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. And I also know folks that deliver pumpkins on doorsteps for Halloween. And I haven't heard of anybody complain. You tie a little note to the little thingy, to the stem. So just, again, pick your battles, pick your activities. I'm not telling you to do open houses, door knocking, and networking. I'm saying that's what our little agent Amy, that's what she decided to do. So we're just using her as a reference today. You get to decide what you want to do. So for her open houses, time invested is 12 hours, so 4 hours weekly. So that's just in regards to putting the signage out around before she goes, sitting in the open house, and then closing it down. So the actual event day takes her about 4 hours. The door knocking that she does around the open house, her target is to knock on 75 doors before each open house. So she's probably going to do that a day or two prior to the open house, right? And here's the thing, not everybody's home, not everybody's going to answer to the person. I don't answer my door, so not everybody's going to answer. So typically of those 75 knocks, 30 people will actually open the door for her. So she brings something of value. It might be the invitation to the open house. It might be for those of us that have mobile apps, you might want to just offer to give them the mobile app so that they can keep in touch with the CMA in their neighborhood. And then that way, obviously, you know their address because you're standing on their porch. Now you have their cell phone number because they've allowed you to text them. Bada bing, bada boom. And then perhaps you go a step further and ask if they would be interested in you keeping in touch with them from time to time with market updates, and then you get their email address. So the purpose is also not to just let them know about the open house because they already live in the neighborhood. The only reason you're going to want to talk to them about that is if they bring a friend there or if they know somebody else in the neighborhood that's ready to move. So if you bring something of value, but it doesn't just have to be the invitation. And then, for instance, this weekend, maybe you go around and door knock with a coronation to everybody in the neighborhood for Mother's Day. I've done that before. So think of what you're going to bring, and all these people door knocking in the open houses we've already talked about is the whole point of this is to add them to your database. Remember, we're collecting the not mets from these activities so that we can feed them and work on them and hopefully move them into our mets one day. So that's the purpose. So for the door knocking, since she only reached 30 over the following 3 weeks, that'll be 90 contacts. Okay, so that's 90 contacts in her database and her new not mets now. And then in the open house, she gets about, each averages 3 people that come in without an agent. Remember, if they have an agent, we leave them alone. So there's 3 people wandering around out there looking at houses without an agent. So she collects their information on the registration sheet, puts them in her database, follows up with them. So between these 2 activities so far, over the next 3 weeks, she's going to capture 99 new people in her not nets. Following so far? So for her door knocking, and that, that takes some time, so that might average her 4 hours to go hit on those doors. Heads up. And then her third activity that she chooses is to attend 2 business networking events. And I want to caution you, we can be a perpetual, I call it the free lunch program. There's always an event for real estate agents. There's the broker open house. There's the social. There's this, there's that. So you don't need to be networking with other agents. They're not your friends. They're your competition. You want the same business they do. So go to business networking events in the community. So Amy has chosen to do that twice a month. And she typically meets about 10 new people that she's never met before, and they exchange business cards. She doesn't just give them hers. So now she has their contact information, puts them in her database. So now she's made 20 new contacts. So in the next 3 weeks, from these 3 activities, there's her time invested for the business. She's got the 9 contacts she made in the open houses from the 3, 90 from door knocking around that, and then 20 new contacts from her networking events. So she has touched 119 people in the next, or she will in the next 3 weeks that she didn't know before. She has added them to her database, so now they're part of her not met collection. And since she just met 119 people and talked about real estate over the next 3 weeks, those should produce 2 new leads based on the average formula. Because remember, it takes 50 to 60 to get a lead. So out of 119 people that she has talked to, people she didn't know before, 2 of them spoke up and said they know somebody that might be interested in buying or selling a home. Everybody see where we are so far?
So that's literally 6 hours of work for 2 leads. I mean, that's exactly what that boils down to. 6 hours of work for 2 leads. That's awesome.
Well, she's got 4 for the open house a weekly.
Oh, it's 6
4
hours
for
a
the
week.
door knocking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And then she, right. So 8 and then 3 at the networking event. So 11 hours. So 33 hours total.
Right.
Got the 2.
Yep.
So so it takes her about 33 hours to get 2 new people from strangers versus her 15 hours a week from calling people she knows. So that's where we'll head next. Let's talk about our return of investment on our time. We just gave you the example, and when I give you the slides, you can flash back and forth. So the moral of the story is, obviously it takes less time and money to get leads from people that you know. So you got to nurture those. It produces more leads. You guys remember how many leads she got from making just the contacts with the people she knows? 150 equals 5 versus 119 strangers only gave her 2. However, you got to have both. So, like we talked about, relationships change. So you can't just keep talking to those same 150 people every week because they're going to block you. And you got to grow your business. So I said at the beginning, this was called 3 leads in 3 weeks. I have now given you a way to get 7 leads in 3 weeks based on Agent Amy's example. However, not all leads become prospects. What just happened to me a few weeks ago through LinkedIn. I used to work in Tallahassee, so one of my former colleagues who's still in real estate there has a friend of a friend or something who lives in Lake City, so in between where I used to be and where I am now. And the referral, her name is Gay, were relocating here to Jacksonville, so they needed a realtor to buy a home. So now this was a warm lead because it was through a mutual contact. We got in touch. However, Gay's husband had already looked at one house with one realtor here in Jacksonville prior to my making the connection with Gay, the lead. So went a step further, made sure that she didn't have a buyer-broker agreement, and Gay didn't like that agent anyway. So we agreed that we liked each other, and when they came over, we would start looking at houses. So I set her up in the email system, and right now she's just a lead. I've never even met her face-to-face. feeding her the email. She's opening the email. She's looking at homes. We keep in touch. And then I get the phone call, Christine, or actually it was an email. Thank you so much. I really, really like you. Thank you for all the work that you've done, but we just decided to make an offer on the first house my husband saw with the other agent. So leads don't become prospects. Got it? So the way you change that is those 7 people that Agent Amy has met, she has the possibility to convert all of them to prospects and appointments depending on her conversion rate and her skill set. So that's the same for you guys. I mean, what if you met 7 new or had 7 new potential pieces of business every 3 weeks, guys? That's huge. And you guys are sitting in silence. That's a lot, right?
That's good.
I mean, that's awesome. And it's not taking that much time, but you need to hone your skills so that you can turn those leads into actual people that want to work with you. So here's where we get down to the nitty gritty, accountability. So how do you ensure that you're actually doing those things? We've just said Amy's committed to open houses every freaking weekend, door knocking before the open houses, and she's going to invest at least 2 evenings a week every month to go to business networking events. Well, that takes time. Just because you put it on your calendar doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? So who's going to make sure that you get it done? So then, do you have the resources and the tools to create first that annual business plan and then now your monthly and your weekly goals? What we're working on right now is the here and now for the next 3 weeks. So at least you're investing in your time now, so hats off to all of you. So then, now you've got the 7 new people, how do you keep track? What are you doing with them? Do you have a tracking system to enter in all those activities, the hours you just spent on the open house, the people on the registration form, all those people you met on the door knocking? Do you have a way to collect all of them and set them up on a campaign to stay top of mind? And do you know your conversion rates? So Amy has met 119 new people and gotten 7. So does she know how to maybe get more proficient at that? What about you? Do you have scripts to overcome objections? Are you working with a partner so that what you say sounds more succinct and not like a canned salesperson? Are you really treating your real estate as an actual business, or are you just getting up in the morning like most realtors go, it's Friday, I don't have any appointments today. I think I'll maybe get on Facebook, maybe message a few people, see what they're up to. And then if they respond back, we'll talk about real estate. Are you running your business like that? Or do you have this time blocked calendar and you get up every morning and you know the activities you have to do and the time it takes for each activity? Time over task. And if not, like most don't, are you ready to commit to that? Because that's why we're here. Coaching. So here's your big secret. Not just for sports. So Brent's heard this story before. So I ran track and cross country in high school. And while those are team sports, I ran the mile and the 2 miles, so they were individual events. So it was all about me. And I was training to get better, obviously to beat the other team, always in the meets, but it was always about making myself better. So on the cross country team, all the little girls were chicken, I guess. We started with a handful of girls and they all dropped out. So I was the only girl on the freaking cross country team, guys, back in my high school. So I had to train with the boys. What you gonna do? So the coach did not create a different training program just for me. I trained with the boys. The good news about that is if you want to get to a higher level, whether it's in sports or your business or your personal life, you have to associate with those that inspire you to be better than you already are, right? A better version of yourself. Well, obviously, for me personally, running with the guys, well, that was like a little ego boost. Part of it, I just want to beat the guys, right? So that's a personal thing. So that motivated me because if the girl's going to beat the guys, I mean, what a boast that is. So training with people that were faster than me made me faster, obviously. My track coach, a different coach during the spring track, would literally come to my house, pick me up on the weekends. This was back before all the crazy we have in the school, so we won't even go there. It was perfectly acceptable for him to come pick me up in my house, drive me to local community races. He already registered me so that I had extra training on the weekends. He was investing extra time in me to make me a better version of me. And I assure you, there were days I didn't feel like working out. You know, I was tired. Maybe you had an exam that day. Maybe you didn't sleep well. And I assure you, in high school, I definitely didn't have good nutritional habits. However, I had to go. You can't not show up for practice. You can't be an athlete and not show up for practice, right? So I had to go. And I mean to tell you, sorry guys, but I would literally throw up, or I would have the dry heaves. It was freaking hot in North Carolina. On that track, it was freaking beating down heat on that asphalt, and I mean, I would get sick. But I showed up again the next day. So sometimes you have to embrace the suck, as we coaches say. So in the real estate world, we don't like to do that prospecting, right? Because we know people are going to tell us no. Door knocking, they're going to slam doors in our faces, right? They're going to cuss us out. It happens. Same thing with for sale by owners. So we sometimes paralyze ourselves from doing the activities that will create our business because of the suck, the no. We don't want to hear the no. You got to do it anyway. So my coaches always believed in me, which created the motivation in myself to always do better as an athlete. So I ultimately ended up holding school records for the mile and the 2 mile for a few years. And again, that was, you know, several moons ago. So those have since been broken, but they literally stayed in the school for several years. And ultimately, because of my cross country, competing with the guys, training with the guys who were better than me, I ended up getting an invitation, and I ran in the 1987 National Junior Olympics, which is the tryouts for young athletes to then go on to maybe get an invitation to try out for the Olympics. Now, it came in the middle of the pack, but that event, here it is, you know, 40 years later, I still remember that. So those coaches had a major impact on my life by motivating me to be a better version of myself. But coaching isn't just for sports. So who's in your corner? Some of you do have coaches. In fact, most of you on here probably do. But while we have to take personal responsibility for our actions, successes, and failures, we need someone that lights the path ahead of us, right? So I'd like to provide a solution for you. It's a coaching program that offers you a guide or a mentor that lights the path and goes a little bit ahead of you perhaps and helps you take a look inside. And additionally, I also have tons of resources, all those things we just talked about, the tracking and your business plans and all that stuff. I have all that stuff here. Here's an example. Hopefully some of you that have access are using it. The Locker Room University is a resource that has recorded webinar trainings. I may end up adding this to it as well. The Agent Action Plan is in there, and it is your annual business plan. So it can be created with your coach that you have or one that you need to have. And it's also offered as a live webinar course in the system. And there's tons of other trainings like that as well. So again, here's the paper version of it. So this is something you can do on your own, do it with webinar, or perhaps that's something you'd want to do with your coach. Because these numbers that we just talked about, your head's probably floating by now. Other resources we have, you've got the Passport to Success. I know some of you are familiar with that. It is sort of like your game plan for your first 30, 60, 90 days to get you to create these habits and know where the resources are. We have a brand new scripts book. So for any situation you can think of in the real estate world, it helps you talk to people at open houses and the door knocking and those networking events that Amy's doing. And then I've told you before that we all get stuck that we all think we know only 50 people. I promise you, you know a lot more. So here's 8 pages of lead generation memory jogger. These are 8 pages of people in your life that I promise you already know. You just haven't remembered that you know them, and they should be a resource for you. Small example, any vendor that you use for home maintenance or whatnot, you're writing checks to them. They in turn need to be sending business to you. So that's a huge, huge group of people right there. So coming soon, we have an online tracking system, guys. Those conversion rates I keep talking about, this is the bomb. So this will be released. I don't have a date yet, but it'll be released soon. So this is where, if you will go, put your activities in, how many hours you spent at that open house, how many open houses you did, how many calls you made, etc. Once you input those activities that you're doing, it creates these charts for you. So how many people does it take for you to get a buyer, and then to take that buyer to the contract? How many people does it, likewise, how many people does it take for you to get a seller, to get a listing, to get to the closing. So it's all right here. Another thing is there's a private Facebook group that offers live trainings. There's some things called The Huddle, which happens every Wednesday. There are other recorded webinars in there as well. And some of these resources that I've mentioned, there's other resources in addition to that in this Facebook group. It's a national referral network. So I talked to you about how you should build a network of agents outside of your area to get leads. So this is a national referral network of several thousand realtors. So all you do is say, hey, I need somebody in Boise, and boom, there's somebody. So it's a way to get business as well. And then you have access. If you just have a quick question, and let's say you do have a coach and your coach is maybe in an appointment with another client, then you can pop on here real quick and ask a question and somebody's going to respond for you. So it's a great resource. And then there's a whole menu of options. There is an option coming out soon where if you just want the resources, you're not quite ready for a coach, that's going to be available soon. And then there's individual coaching, there's group coaching options, but it includes all of these and more of the things that I just mentioned to you. So the good news is we're not dragging on for 2 hours. You guys get to have lunch soon. So any questions so far, guys? Have I lost everybody on the numbers?
No.
No.
So who's excited and who's petrified?
Kate's excited.
I'm excited.
So there's one positive. So I guess the rest of us are petrified. So
I'm excited.
I hope that good. So my future realtor there. So I hope that it's at least given you some insight, because we all get off track, right? So that's the point of a coach, is just to, whatever your goals are, you don't have to do what Agent Amy's doing. Whatever your goals are, figure out what you want to do and commit to it. And here's the other thing with the activities, guys, is don't just try it 1 month and say, well, open houses don't work for me. I'm here to tell you open houses is not where I've typically gotten business. However, I'm doing open houses every weekend these days, because sooner or later, it's probably my script that needs to be changed a little bit. There were 3 people that came in on the last one that didn't have an agent, and I got conversations with them, and yet I could not get them to commit to me. So that's something I have to work on, because they're out there looking at open houses. All 3 of them admitted they go to open houses every weekend. They're not ready for a realtor. So I have to figure out how to change that. So the prospects were there, the leads were there. So figure out what your activities are and do them over and over and over. And my recommendation is 12 to 18 months before you discard that activity. And that's when you go back and assess your return on your investment, your time, and maybe the money that you spent, and see how many leads you got. So maybe January, since we're starting now for June, for the end of the year, when you work on your business plan, by the way, before January, so you're probably going to want to start looking at this October, November, look back at this whole year, see where the sources of your leads were, how much money did you spend on each, and what was your return on your investment. And then maybe next year, you discard an activity and replace it with another one and try it for next year. But the coach, whoever you decide to work with, if you already have one, I hope this inspires you to go and make your coaching appointment today. So if you don't have one, obviously there's my contact information, and Brent's on here as well. But that's the point of a coach, is to help you stay on track of your goals and your plan. It's not to give you a plan or tell you what to do. So, hey, like I said, the good news is we did all this in an hour because you guys were quiet. Hopefully you're taking notes.
Hey, Christine, you just said something that was a different perspective that I had never thought about. You were talking about the open houses, and you mentioned that people that you had talked to had said that they went to open houses every weekend because they weren't ready to find a realtor. And it was, and that initially, my perspective and the way that I have typically gauged the success of an open house has been, how many ready, willing, and able buyers did I find at that open house? Or how many sellers that are ready to list their property in the next 30 to 90 days did I find through that open house process? But the reality is that if you just start making connections with people that are 3, 6, 9, 12 months out, then you're just adding to your database and guaranteeing yourself future business. And so that was kind of a little mind shift for me. So I appreciate that.
Thanks. So yeah, so they have my contact information too. And like one of them is moving down from North Carolina. So they are truly not ready yet. She used to live here. So again, I thought we connected really well because we have that whole North Carolina connection together, and I got so much information from each. And guys, what I did was it wasn't my listing, so I borrowed it. So the actual listing agent, I gave her a summary as soon as I got back of each prospect that walked in, whether or not they had an agent. If they had an agent, I gave her the agent's contact so she could follow up fairly, and then gave her like a whole little summary. I got the people to talk. I know exactly what their current situation is and why they're looking to move. I didn't close them on working with me, but Brent made a valid point. Perhaps it's not maybe they're willing and able, but not ready. So remember, you have to have all three of those pieces for them to convert to a prospect. So thanks for bringing that point up. So any other questions, guys?
No?
So who is
Not
ready?
for me right now.
So who is ready to go get 7 new leads to create 3 new prospects over the next 3 weeks? So your
Me.
goal is 1 new prospect a week. I hear a commitment.
You betcha.
So any last questions, guys? Well, thank
No,
you
this
all.
was-
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
This was good, Christine. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, I
So
enjoy it.
happy Friday, happy Mother's Day
Yeah.
weekend, and go
Have
get on the phone.
Okay, have a good weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
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 Okay. Now how do I get out of here?